You spend your days trying to build the reality you want, brick by brick, never realizing it already exists whole, breathing in another frequency. And that wait time that frustrates you so much? It's just the lag of your own tuning adjustment. Your problem isn't lack of effort. It's not some secret manifestation technique the gurus forgot to mention. Your problem is this. You keep trying to raise a building on empty ground when the universe works like an infinite radio. The station playing the song of your new life is transmitting right now, exactly as you listen to me. But you keep turning the dial back to the old frequency, expecting to hear something different. You demand to see the mechanics of it. Your logical mind needs the sweat, the linear proof that step A led to step B. And when inspired action finally shows up, that sudden, illogical impulse to take a different route home or call someone you haven't seen in years, you dismiss it. You reject it because it doesn't look like the hard work you were taught to worship. You reject the signal of the new frequency bleeding into your life because it doesn't sound like your old station. Picture this. You're in a dark room. You turn on a flashlight and it hits one small wall. You call that reality. But the whole room is full of furniture, possibilities, entire lives, bathed in infrared light your physical eyes can't see. The parallel reality where you're not exhausted, where money isn't panic, where your relationship isn't a war zone. It doesn't need to be created. It needs to be selected. The exhaustion you feel isn't from building your future. It's from holding your current reality together with everything you've got, terrified to let it go. We're going to take apart that illusion today. We're not going to talk about positive thinking. We're not going to repeat empty mantras at the mirror. We're going to understand the physics of how you tune into the station where your life is already solved. And we're going to understand why, until now, you've been your own signal blocker. Let's start with something you already know but have never connected to this. When you listen to music, you don't create the sound. The radio station broadcasts it. Your receiver picks it up. The music exists whether you're tuned in or not. 1,000 songs are moving through the air around you right now. You're not hearing them because your dial isn't on their frequency. That's not a metaphor. That's physics. Quantum physics tells us something that should have broken your mind by now, but somehow hasn't made it into your daily life. Reality isn't a fixed thing waiting for you to build it. Reality is a field of infinite potential. Every possible version of every outcome already exists, not in some mystical sense, in the actual structure of how the universe works. There's a version of you that made that decision differently. There's a version of you that said yes when you said no. There's a version of you that kept going when you quit. These aren't fantasies. They're not in some distant future. They're happening right now in parallel frequencies, in what physicists call the space of variations. Zeeland called it the space of variations. Dispenza talks about the quantum field. Neville Goddard understood it as the assumption. Different language, same truth. The life you want isn't being built. It's being selected. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. You can't select a frequency you don't believe you deserve to be on. You can't tune into a station that contradicts your core assumption about who you are. Your frequency, the one you're broadcasting right now, is determined by what you assume about yourself in the deepest, quietest part of your mind. Not what you say you believe, not what you post, what you actually assume. Most people spend their whole lives assuming they're not enough, not smart enough, not connected enough, not worthy enough. And the universe, which is just a mirror of your frequency, reflects that assumption back perfectly. You get evidence everywhere that you're right. The job you didn't get, the person who didn't call back, the money that ran out. The universe isn't punishing you. It's just playing back the station you're tuned to. Inspired action is the first sign that you're shifting frequencies. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. It feels almost reckless. That's how you know it's real. When you're on the old frequency, action feels like pushing a boulder uphill. It's effortful, linear, exhausting. When you're on the new frequency, Action feels like remembering something you already know. It feels like following a trail that's already lit. The problem is, the moment that inspired action shows up, your old frequency tries to kill it. Your logical mind says, "This doesn't make sense. This isn't how things work. You're being irresponsible." And you listen to that voice because it's familiar. It's the voice that kept you safe. It's the voice of everyone who ever told you to be realistic. But realistic is just another word for tuned to the frequency of scarcity. Here's what Dispenza discovered in his research. When people meditate, when they get into a state where their brain waves shift into coherence, they're not creating anything. They're tuning. They're adjusting their frequency to match the field where the outcome already exists. And in that state, the body doesn't know the difference between the imagined experience and the real one. The nervous system responds the same way. The chemistry shifts. The possibilities available to you in the quantum field start to reorganize around your new frequency. This is why affirmations fail for most people. You can't say, "I am abundant," while your nervous system is broadcasting, "I am afraid." The words are on one frequency, your body is on another. The universe picks up the body's broadcast, not your words. This is also why you feel so stuck. You're not stuck because the universe is against you. You're stuck because you're trying to access a new frequency while your nervous system is still locked into the old one. You're trying to tune the dial while your hand is shaking. The shift doesn't happen through willpower. It happens through recognition, through seeing clearly that the life you're living right now is the exact match of the frequency you're broadcasting. And then, this is the hard part, accepting that if you want a different life, you have to become a different frequency. Not think differently, become differently. Your old self, the one that's exhausted, the one that's afraid, the one that's trying so hard to build something, that self has to die. Not literally, but the identity has to dissolve. The assumptions have to crack open, and that's terrifying because that self is all you know. But here's what's waiting on the other side. A version of you that doesn't have to try so hard. A version that's already solved the problem. A version that's not building the life. That version is living it. And that version is broadcasting right now, on a frequency very close to where you are. Close enough that you can hear the static. Close enough that sometimes, without warning, you catch a glimpse of it. A moment of clarity. A sudden knowing. A sense that something is about to shift. That's not coincidence. That's signal bleed. That's the new frequency leaking into your current awareness. And what you do with that signal in the next few seconds determines whether you move toward it or away from it. Most people move away. They dismiss it. They call it a daydream. They go back to the familiar frequency because at least it's known. But you're still here. You're still listening. Which means some part of you is ready to hear something different. Now we go deeper, into the actual mechanism, into what's really happening in your body, in your nervous system, in the quantum field around you. The thing is, you've been taught to think of reality as something fixed, something solid. A wall is a wall. Money is money. A closed door is a closed door. But that's not how reality works at the quantum level. At the quantum level, reality is a probability field. It's a space of infinite potential. Every possible outcome exists simultaneously until you observe it, until you measure it, until you collapse it into a single reality. This isn't philosophy. This is what physicists discovered over 100 years ago. The double-slit experiment, the observer effect, the measurement problem. They all point to the same thing. Consciousness and reality are not separate. Your observation shapes what's real. But here's where it gets practical. Here's where it stops being abstract and starts being about your life. Your nervous system is constantly observing. It's constantly measuring. It's constantly collapsing potential into reality. Every single moment, you're making a choice, usually without knowing it, about which frequency you're tuned to. And that choice determines which version of reality you experience. Let me break this down mechanically. When you wake up in the morning, Before anything happens, your nervous system is already in a state. It's already broadcasting a frequency. If you woke up thinking about all the things that could go wrong, your nervous system is in a state of threat detection. Your amygdala is activated. Your body is flooded with cortisol. You're literally in survival mode before your feet hit the ground. In this state, your perception is narrow. Your brain is scanning for danger. You notice the traffic jam. You notice the email from your boss. You notice the crack in the ceiling. You don't notice the text from a friend. You don't notice the opportunity hiding in a conversation. You don't notice the beauty in the morning light. Your nervous system has filtered all of that out because it's not relevant to survival. But here's the thing, that filtering isn't objective. It's not like the traffic jam is more real than the beauty in the light. They're both there. Your nervous system just chose to filter for one and ignore the other, and that choice was determined by your frequency. Now imagine a different morning. You wake up and before you check your phone, before you think about all the things you have to do, you take a moment. You feel into your body. You notice your breath. You notice the weight of the blanket. You notice that you're alive, that you made it through another night, that your heart is still beating. In this state, your nervous system is in a different mode. It's not in threat detection. It's in what's called rest and digest. Your parasympathetic nervous system is activated. Your body is flooded with different chemicals: serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, the chemicals of trust, of possibility, of connection. In this state, your perception expands. You notice the same traffic jam, but you also notice the podcast you can listen to. You notice the email from your boss, but you also notice the opportunity to demonstrate your value. You notice the crack in the ceiling, but you also notice the sunlight coming through the window. Your nervous system is filtering for possibility instead of threat. Same world, different frequency, different reality. This is what Dispenza discovered in his research. He studied people before and after his meditations. He measured their brain waves, their heart rate variability, their immune function. And what he found was that when people shifted into a state of coherence, when their nervous system synchronized, their entire physiology changed. Their immune system strengthened. Their inflammation markers dropped. Their brain began to reorganize. But more importantly, he found that in this state of coherence, people became available to a different frequency of reality. They started to notice opportunities they'd never seen before. They started to make different choices. They started to move in a different direction, and the world reorganized around them. This is not positive thinking. This is not fake it till you make it. This is actual physiology. This is your nervous system recalibrating to a new baseline. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. There's a concept in neuroscience called state-dependent memory. It means that information is easier to recall when you're in the same state you were in when you learned it. If you learned something while you were anxious, you'll more easily remember it when you're anxious again. If you learned something while you were calm, you'll more easily remember it when you're calm. But here's the application. If you want to access a different version of yourself, you have to get into the state that version operates from. You can't access the version of you that's confident and capable while you're sitting in a state of fear and doubt. Your nervous system won't let you. It's like trying to tune into a radio station that's on a completely different frequency. So the work is to practice shifting your state, not thinking about shifting, actually shifting, getting your body into a different state. And the most direct way to do that is through what's called embodied cognition. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. Your body shapes your mind. When you change your posture, your physiology changes. When you change your breathing, your nervous system responds. When you change the way you move through space, your perception shifts. Your body is not just a vehicle for your mind. Your body is the primary instrument of consciousness. Your mind follows where your body leads. This is why Neville Goddard was so specific about the practice. He didn't just say, visualize. He said to feel it, to get into the state of already having what you want, to let your body experience it as real, because your body doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. As far as your nervous system is concerned, if you're feeling the emotion of having what you want, you already have it. And when your nervous system believes you already have it, something shifts in how you move through the world. You make different choices. You notice different things. You attract different people and opportunities, not because the universe is rewarding you, because you're broadcasting a different frequency, and the world is responding to that frequency. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Here's where most people get stuck. The moment you start to shift your frequency, the moment you start to broadcast something different, your old identity fights back. It fights back hard. Because your old identity is not just a collection of thoughts. It's a pattern that's embedded in your nervous system. It's a groove that's been worn deep over years, sometimes decades. When you try to step out of that groove, your nervous system experiences it as a threat. It's like you're trying to do something that violates everything your body knows to be true, and your nervous system will do everything it can to pull you back into the familiar pattern. This is what people call self-sabotage. But it's not sabotage. It's your nervous system trying to keep you safe. It's your nervous system trying to maintain homeostasis. It's your nervous system saying, I know this groove. I know how to survive in this groove. Don't take me somewhere unfamiliar. And most people listen to that voice. They feel the discomfort of stepping into a new frequency, and they retreat back to the old one. They go back to the familiar pain, because at least it's known. But here's what happens if you stay with it. If you keep practicing, if you keep shifting your state, even when it feels wrong, even when it feels like you're lying to yourself, your nervous system starts to recalibrate. The new frequency starts to become familiar. The groove starts to shift. And then something remarkable happens. The world starts to reorganize around you. Not all at once, gradually, in small ways at first. You get a text from someone you haven't heard from in years. They have an opportunity for you. You take a different route to work and meet someone who becomes important to you. You have an idea in the shower that solves a problem you've been stuck on. These aren't coincidences. These are the quantum field responding to your new frequency. Zealand talks about this as sliding. You're not forcing yourself into a new reality. You're sliding into it. You're letting your frequency shift gradually, moment by moment, choice by choice. And as you do, the world slides with you. The reality you're experiencing shifts. The people around you respond differently. The opportunities that were invisible become visible. But here's the key. You have to stay on the new frequency long enough for the world to reorganize around it. Most people shift their frequency for a day or two, feel good, and then slip back into the old pattern. And when they slip back, they wonder why nothing changed. They wonder why the opportunities didn't materialize. It's because the world needs time to reorganize. Your nervous system needs time to settle into the new baseline. The quantum field needs time to collapse into a new configuration. If you keep switching back and forth between frequencies, you're just creating noise. You're not giving the system time to lock in. This is why consistency matters. Not the grinding, exhausting kind of consistency where you're white-knuckling your way to success. The gentle, embodied kind of consistency where you keep returning to the new frequency over and over until it becomes your baseline. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you turn the dial a little bit and then immediately turn it back, you never hear the station. You have to hold the dial on the new frequency long enough for the signal to come through clearly. Same thing with your nervous system. You have to hold yourself on the new frequency long enough for the signal to stabilize. And here's what's beautiful about this. Once the signal stabilizes, once your nervous system settles into the new frequency, you don't have to think about it anymore. It becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. The new identity becomes as familiar as the old one was. But getting there requires something that most people are unwilling to do. It requires you to let the old identity die. It requires you to grieve the version of yourself that you've been. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of not knowing who you are for a while. It requires you to trust that something new is emerging, even when you can't see it yet. This is the real work, not the meditation, not the visualization. The willingness to let go of who you've been so that you can become who you're meant to be. And that's terrifying, because the old identity, as painful as it is at least known. It's at least predictable. You know how to survive in it. You know the rules, you know the limits. And there's a strange comfort in that, even if the comfort comes wrapped in suffering. Now let me talk about what actually happens in your body when you make this shift, because this is where the real magic lives. Not magic in the sense of something supernatural, magic in the sense of something that seems impossible until you understand the mechanism. When you practice shifting your state, when you meditate, when you feel into the emotion of already having what you want, when you embody the frequency of the person you're becoming, your brain literally changes. This isn't metaphorical. Your neurons are rewiring. Your synapses are reorganizing. The neural pathways that have been dominant for years are weakening, and new pathways are strengthening. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It's not hardwired. It's constantly reorganizing based on what you practice, what you think about, what you feel, what you do. This is why people who practice an instrument get better at it. Their brain is literally rewiring to support that skill. This is why people who meditate show changes in their brain structure. Their brain is literally reorganizing to support that state. But here's what most people don't understand. This rewiring doesn't happen just from thinking about it. It happens from practice, from repetition, from actually getting into the state over and over until your nervous system recognizes it as safe, as normal, as home. This is why Dispenza emphasizes the importance of daily practice. It's not because he's trying to sell you something. It's because the brain needs repetition to rewire. One meditation isn't going to do it. One visualization isn't going to do it. You need to practice consistently, day after day, until the new frequency becomes your baseline. And here's the beautiful part. As your brain rewires, your perception changes. You literally start to see the world differently. The opportunities that were invisible become visible. The connections that didn't make sense start to make sense. The path forward that seemed blocked suddenly opens up. This is what people mean when they talk about awakening. It's not some mystical experience. It's your nervous system recalibrating. It's your brain rewiring. It's your perception shifting to a new frequency. And once it shifts, you can't go back. You can try. Your old identity will try to pull you back. But part of you will always know that there's another way. Part of you will always remember that you experienced a different frequency. And that knowledge, that memory, is the seed of your transformation. Here's another layer to this. Here's what happens when you actually start to embody the new frequency in your daily life. Your body language changes. The way you carry yourself shifts. You stand a little taller. Your shoulders are a little looser. Your breathing is a little deeper. And people respond to that. They respond to your energy before they respond to your words. They sense that something is different about you, and they treat you differently. This isn't magic. This is basic human psychology. We're all constantly reading each other's nervous system state. We're all picking up on subtle cues about whether someone is in threat mode or trust mode, and we respond accordingly. When you shift your nervous system state, people feel it, and they respond to it. So you start to attract different people. You start to have different conversations. You start to get different opportunities. Not because the universe is rewarding you, because you're broadcasting a different signal, and the world is responding to that signal. And here's where inspired action comes in. This is the thing that most people miss. Inspired action is not the same as forced action. Forced action is when you're trying to make something happen. You're pushing. You're grinding. You're white-knuckling your way to success. Inspired action is when you're being pulled, when something feels right, when you have a sudden knowing about what to do next. Inspired action is the first sign that you're on a new frequency. It's the universe responding to your new signal. It's the quantum field reorganizing around your new state. But here's the problem. When inspired action shows up, it often doesn't make logical sense. It feels risky. It feels irresponsible. It feels like you're going against everything you've been taught. And your old identity, your old nervous system state, will do everything it can to talk you out of it. Most people listen to that voice. They reject the inspired action. They go back to forced action. They go back to grinding, and they wonder why nothing changes. But if you trust the inspired action, if you follow it, even when it doesn't make sense, if you take the step even when you're scared, that's when things shift. That's when the world reorganizes around you. That's when you start to experience the life you've been trying to build. This is what Zealand means by sliding. You're not forcing your way into a new reality. You're following the breadcrumbs. You're taking the inspired actions. You're letting the world guide you into the frequency where your life is already solved. But here's the thing. You have to be willing to let go of how you think it should happen. You have to be willing to let go of your plan. You have to be willing to trust that there's a path forward, even if you can't see it yet. And that requires a level of faith that most people are not willing to have. Because faith means letting go of control. And most people have been taught that control is safety, that if you're not in control, you're in danger. But that's the old frequency talking. That's the nervous system state of threat detection. On the new frequency, on the state of trust, you realize that control is actually an illusion, that you were never in control, that the only thing you were ever in control of was your frequency, your state, your assumption about who you are. And when you let go of trying to control the outcome and instead focus on shifting your frequency, everything changes. The world reorganizes. The opportunities appear. The path forward opens up. This is the mechanism. This is how frequency tuning actually works. Not as some abstract spiritual concept, but as a real, embodied neurological process. Your nervous system broadcasts a frequency. The quantum field responds to that frequency. The world reorganizes around that frequency. You experience a reality that matches that frequency. And if you want a different reality, you have to shift your frequency. That's it. That's the whole thing. But getting there requires something that most people are unwilling to do. It requires you to let the old identity die. It requires you to grieve the version of yourself that you've been. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of not knowing who you are for a while. It requires you to trust that something new is emerging, even when you can't see it yet. On the other side of that death and rebirth is a version of you that's not exhausted. A version of you that's not constantly pushing against the current. A version of you that's tuned into the frequency where your life is already solved. That version exists, right now, in the space of variations, in the quantum field, broadcasting on a frequency very close to where you are, close enough that you can feel it sometimes, close enough that sometimes without warning you catch a glimpse of it, a moment of clarity, a sudden knowing, a sense that something is about to shift. That's not coincidence. That's signal bleed. That's the new frequency leaking into your current awareness. And what you do with that signal in the next few seconds determines whether you move toward it or away from it. Here's the thing nobody tells you about transformation. It doesn't feel like growth. It feels like death. Because it is death. The death of who you thought you were. The death of the identity you've been protecting your whole life. The death of the story you've been telling yourself about why things are the way they are. And that death is not gentle. It's not comfortable. It's not something you can ease into with a few meditations and some positive affirmations. It's a confrontation with yourself, with everything you've believed about what's possible, with everything you've believed about who you are. This is plot point 2. This is the supreme ordeal. This is the moment where the old self-image dies and the new understanding lands. And it happens like this. You're going about your day. You're practicing. You're meditating. You're embodying the new frequency. And then something happens. something small, something that would normally be insignificant, but in this moment, it cracks open everything. Maybe you're in a conversation and someone says something that 6 months ago would have devastated you, but this time, you don't react, you don't defend, you don't retreat into shame, you just listen, and you realize that thing they said doesn't define me anymore. That wound doesn't own me anymore. Or maybe you're faced with an opportunity that the old you would have rejected. It's too risky. It doesn't fit the plan. It doesn't make sense. But the new you sees it differently. The new you feels the pull of it. The new you knows, without knowing how you know, that this is the path. And in that moment, you're faced with a choice, a real choice, not a theoretical one. A choice that will determine which frequency you stay on. Do you take the step, or do you retreat back to safety? Do you trust the new frequency, or do you go back to the familiar pain? This is the moment. This is where most people fail, because taking the step means accepting that you might be wrong. It means accepting that you might fail. It means accepting that the new identity might not work out. But not taking the step means accepting something worse. It means accepting that you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to try. And in that moment, something shifts. You realize that the fear of staying the same is greater than the fear of changing. You realize that the pain of not becoming who you're meant to be is greater than the pain of the transformation itself. And you take the step. But here's what happens in that moment that nobody prepares you for. The moment you take the step, the moment you commit to the new frequency, your nervous system doesn't celebrate. It panics, because you've just violated everything your body knows to be true. You've just done something that contradicts the deepest assumptions about who you are. You've just stepped outside the groove that's been worn into your nervous system for years, maybe decades. Your body doesn't know if this is safe. Your body doesn't know if you're going to survive this, so it sends out a signal, a distress signal. Your heart rate increases, your palms get sweaty, your mind starts to flood with doubt. What are you doing? This is crazy. You're going to fail. You're going to look stupid. You're going to lose everything. This is the dark night of the soul. This is the moment where the transformation almost always fails, because the discomfort is so intense that most people retreat. They go back to the familiar, they go back to the groove, and they tell themselves that they tried, but it wasn't for them. But if you stay with it, if you feel the panic and take the step anyway, if you let your nervous system scream and you move forward anyway, something shifts. Your nervous system realizes that the thing it was afraid of didn't happen. You didn't die. You didn't lose everything. You're still here. You're still alive. And you did something you didn't think you could do. And in that moment, your nervous system recalibrates. The groove starts to loosen. The baseline starts to shift. Your body starts to accept that there's another way to be. Let me be specific about what this recalibration actually feels like, because it's not what you'd expect. It doesn't feel like relief. It feels like numbness. Like you're moving through the world in a fog, like you're watching yourself from outside your body. This is called depersonalization, and it's actually a sign that your nervous system is reorganizing. It's a sign that the old identity is dissolving, and the new one hasn't fully formed yet. You're in the liminal space, the space between who you were and who you're becoming, and this space is terrifying, because you don't know who you are anymore. The old identity is gone, but the new one isn't solid yet. You're floating. You're untethered. You're in free fall. Most people can't tolerate this space. They can't sit with the not knowing. So they grab onto something. They go back to the old identity. They go back to the familiar groove. And they tell themselves that they were right all along. That transformation isn't real. That it's all just wishful thinking. But some people stay in the space. Some people sit with the discomfort. Some people trust that something is emerging, even though they can't see it yet. And for those people, something remarkable happens. The numbness starts to lift. the fog starts to clear, and slowly, gradually, a new sense of self starts to emerge. Not the old self, not the new self you were trying to force, but a self that's emerging organically from the frequency you've been broadcasting. This is the rebirth, not as some mystical experience, but as a real, embodied shift in your nervous system. Your baseline has changed. Your frequency has shifted. You're no longer broadcasting the signal of the person who's stuck. You're broadcasting the signal of the person who's becoming, and the world starts to respond to that signal immediately. But here's what's crucial to understand. This shift is not permanent. Not yet. Your nervous system is still learning. It's still testing. It's still looking for evidence that the new frequency is safe. So what happens next is that you get tested. The universe tests you. Life tests you. Your circumstances test you. And they test you in the exact way that will trigger your old identity the most. Maybe you get rejected. Maybe you face a setback. Maybe someone criticizes you. Maybe you make a mistake. And in that moment, your old identity rises up. It says, "See, I told you so. You're not ready for this. You're not capable of this. Go back to what you know." And this is where the real work happens. This is where transformation is actually won or lost. Because you're faced with another choice. Do you believe the old identity? Or do you believe the new frequency? Do you interpret the setback as evidence that you're not enough? Or do you interpret it as information, as feedback, as part of the path? Most people choose the first option. They retreat. They go back to the familiar. And they spend the rest of their lives wondering what would have happened if they'd been brave enough to stay. But some people choose differently. Some people feel the old identity rise up, and they acknowledge it. They say, "I see you. I know you're trying to protect me, but I'm not going back. I'm staying on this frequency. I'm going to take this setback as information, not as proof that I'm not enough." And they take another step, and then another, and then another. And each step, each time they choose the new frequency over the old identity, their nervous system recalibrates a little more. The groove loosens a little more. The baseline shifts a little more. Until one day, something remarkable happens. The new frequency becomes the familiar. The new identity becomes the baseline. You're no longer having to fight to stay on the new frequency. You're no longer having to resist the pull of the old identity. The new way of being has become who you are. And that's when the magic happens. That's when the world starts to reorganize around you in ways you couldn't have predicted. Because you're no longer broadcasting a mixed signal. You're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer trying to build something while your nervous system is broadcasting scarcity. You're aligned. You're coherent. You're on one frequency. And the quantum field responds to that alignment. The opportunities that were invisible become visible. The people who are meant to find you start to appear. The path forward that seemed blocked opens up. Not because you forced it, not because you grinded your way to success, but because you tuned into the frequency where your life is already solved. And you stayed there long enough for the world to reorganize around you. This is what the masters understood. Neville understood it. Dispenza understands it. Zealand understood it. They all understood that the work is not to build the life. The work is to become the frequency of the person who already has it, and then to stay on that frequency, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the old identity tries to pull you back, even when the world tests you. Because the world will test you, that's guaranteed, but each test is an opportunity. Each setback is a chance to choose the new frequency again. Each moment of doubt is a chance to recommit to the new identity, and the more you choose it, the more it becomes real. The more you embody it, the more it becomes who you are. The more you stay on that frequency, the more the world reorganizes around it. Here's what this actually looks like in practice. It's not dramatic. It's not like lightning bolts and sudden revelations. It's subtle. It's gradual. It's the accumulation of small shifts that add up to a complete life transformation. You start to notice that you're making different choices. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because the new frequency naturally leads to different choices. You find yourself saying no to things that don't align with the new frequency. You find yourself saying yes to things that do. And these choices, made consistently over time, start to create a completely different life. You start to notice that you're attracting different people. People who are on the same frequency. People who are also tuned into possibility instead of scarcity. People who lift you up instead of dragging you down. And these relationships start to create momentum. They start to reinforce the new frequency. You start to notice that opportunities are appearing, not all at once, but consistently, regularly, in ways that feel synchronistic, like the universe is conspiring in your favor, which it is, because you're broadcasting a frequency that the universe has to respond to. Until one day you look back and you don't recognize the person you used to be. The exhaustion is gone. The constant pushing is gone. The sense of being stuck is gone. And in its place is a sense of flow, a sense of rightness, a sense that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And you realize that you didn't build this life. You tuned into it. You selected it. You became the frequency of it. And the universe had no choice but to reorganize around you. This is the real magic, not the waving of a wand, but the shift from one frequency to another, from one identity to another, from one way of being to another. And that shift is available to you right now, not someday, not when you have more time or more money or more certainty. Right now, in this moment, because the version of you that's already solved is broadcasting right now, in the space of variations, in the quantum field, and you can tune into that frequency, you can feel into that state, you can embody that identity, and the moment you do, the moment you stop trying to build and start tuning, everything changes. Your nervous system recalibrates, your brain rewires, your perception shifts, and the world reorganizes around you. But here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. You have to be willing to die to who you've been. You have to be willing to let go of the identity that's kept you safe, even though it's also kept you stuck. You have to be willing to step into the unknown, into the discomfort, into the panic, knowing that on the other side is a version of you that's free. And that's not easy. That's not comfortable. That's not something you can do halfway. But it's the only way. It's the only path to the life you actually want. It's the only way to stop being exhausted. It's the only way to stop pushing against the current. It's the only way to tune into the frequency where your life is already solved. So the question is not whether it's possible. The question is whether you're willing to do it. Whether you're willing to feel the death. Whether you're willing to let the old identity dissolve. Whether you're willing to trust that something new is emerging, even when you can't see it yet. Because if you're willing to make that choice, then everything changes. Not your circumstances, your relationship to them, not the world, your frequency, not your life, your being. And from that place, from that frequency, from that being, you move through the world differently. You make different choices. You notice different things. You attract different people. You create different outcomes. This is not a promise. This is a description of how the mechanism works. This is how frequency tuning actually functions. This is the physics of manifestation. This is the path of transformation, and you're standing at the threshold right now. You pass your days trying to build the reality you want. That's how we started. That's the frequency you were broadcasting when you pressed play on this video. The exhaustion of construction. The desperation of someone trying to force something into existence that doesn't want to be forced. But now you know something different. The reality you want isn't being built. It's being selected. It's already complete, already whole, already breathing in another frequency. And the only thing between you and it is your own tuning. The radio is still playing. The station where your life is solved is still transmitting. The infrared light is still there, bathing everything in a frequency your eyes can't see, but your nervous system can feel. The difference is that now you understand the mechanism. Now you know that the wait time isn't wasted. It's the lag of your own adjustment. It's the time your nervous system needs to recalibrate. It's the space where the old identity dissolves and the new one emerges. And you know that inspired action isn't random. It's the signal of the new frequency bleeding into your awareness. It's the universe responding to your shift. It's the breadcrumb trail leading you toward the life that's already solved. You know that the discomfort you feel when you step into the new frequency isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something real. It's your nervous system reorganizing. It's the groove loosening. It's the old identity dying so that the new one can be born. And you know that consistency matters, not the grinding kind, the gentle, embodied kind, the kind where you keep returning to the new frequency over and over until it becomes your baseline, until it becomes who you are. This is the return, not to where you started, but to a place where the starting point makes sense, where the exhaustion makes sense, where the struggle makes sense, because now you understand that it was all pointing toward this moment, toward this understanding, toward this shift. The logline that opened this video was a paradox. You're trying to build something that already exists, but it wasn't a paradox meant to frustrate you. It was a paradox meant to wake you up, to crack open the assumption that reality is something you have to force into existence, to show you that there's another way. And now you're standing in that other way. You're standing in the frequency where your life is already solved. You're standing in the space where the old identity has dissolved and the new one is emerging. You're standing at the threshold between the life you've been living and the life you're becoming. And the only question left is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to go back to the old frequency? Are you going to retreat into the familiar groove? Are you going to tell yourself that this was just a nice idea, but it's not real? Or are you going to stay on the new frequency? Are you going to keep practicing? Are you going to keep embodying the new identity? Are you going to keep taking the inspired actions, even when they don't make logical sense? Are you going to trust that the world will reorganize around you? Are you going to trust that the opportunities will appear? Are you going to trust that the path forward will open up? Because if you do, if you're willing to make that choice, then everything changes. Not tomorrow, not next week, but gradually, moment by moment, choice by choice, the world reorganizes around you. The person you meet becomes important. The book you pick up contains the answer. The conversation that happens unexpectedly shifts your perspective. The setback becomes information. The rejection becomes redirection. The closed door becomes the opening to a better path. And one day, you look back, and you don't recognize the person you used to be. The exhaustion is gone. The pushing is gone. The sense of being stuck is gone. And in its place is a life that feels like it's flowing, a life that feels like it's unfolding, a life that feels like it's already solved. Because it is. It always was. You just had to tune into the frequency where it exists. The radio keeps playing. The station where your life is solved keeps transmitting. And now you know how to keep the dial turned to that frequency. Now you know that the only thing between you and the life you want is your own tuning. So tune, practice, embody, stay on the frequency, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the old identity tries to pull you back, even when the world tests you. Because on the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that's free, a version of you that's not exhausted, a version of you that's already arrived. And that version is broadcasting right now.